My wife died in a car crash a little over a year ago. I'm a detective, and department policy, conflict of interest, kept me off my own wife's case. The truck driver was eventually convicted of a DUI manslaughter, but I always felt there was more to it than what the official report said. In the months before the crash, my wife, Claire, started getting calls in the middle of the night, and she'd always hide away to answer them. We talked less and less. She was out of the house at all hours, her movements a blur. I never knew where she was. As a homicide detective, my job was demanding. We barely had time for each other, and I started to suspect she was hiding something from me. Maybe even. My refusal to let it go is probably why, after I closed a high-profile case involving the murder of a wealthy family, the department transferred me to New Orleans. Even though loose ends still bothered me on that case, I had no choice but to hand it off and report for my new post. Before I left, I asked my old partner to keep digging for me. I'd been in New Orleans for 6 months, slowly getting used to life in the humid southern city. Today was a rare day off. I was wandering aimlessly through the old French Quarter when the oppressive heat drove me toward a small shop with a promising sign. I went in and ordered a sweet iced tea, Big AL sweet tea. It was a funny thing about this city. The little cafes, the drink stands, even the grand old restaurants, they all loved to name themselves after some uncle, auntie, or family name. The place was crowded, so I found a spot near the door to wait, scrolling through my phone. Crack! A loud noise echoed from somewhere nearby, sharp and violent, like a crane dropping a steel beam at a construction site. A moment later, a family of 3 hurried past me. "Honey, didn't you promise you'd stop looking up all that morbid, creepy stuff?" the husband said. "Oh, come on, babe," the wife replied. "They say tons of people have died in that plaza, and somebody just jumped. We're on vacation. What's a little local gossip?" "Mommy, I want a drink," the little girl whined, pulling her hand free and skipping toward the shop. Their conversation snagged my attention. I looked up. "Excuse me," I asked the woman. "Did you say someone jumped? Where?" She pointed down the street. "Right over there, the Cypress Grove Galleria. You can't miss it. A huge crowd is gathering." "Okay, thanks." I took off at a jog. On the way, I could hear people talking about it. The cops were probably already on their way. The Cypress Grove Galleria was an upscale mall, mostly filled with jewelry and gemstone shops. As I got closer, I saw the bottleneck of people at the entrance. The central atrium had been cordoned off by security with metal barricades and yellow police tape. In the middle of the floor, something was covered by a black tarp. "Detective Ethan Hayes, NOPD Major Crimes," I said, flashing my badge. I told the mall staff to start dispersing the crowd and called it into the precinct. The main entrance featured a single, downward-riding escalator, an odd design choice. Most malls have them running both ways, or at least up. The building itself was a large rotunda with a domed glass ceiling. Through the glass, I could see the top of a massive skyscraper looming in the distance. I ducked under the tape and lifted a corner of the black tarp. The polished marble floor was slick with blood. The victim's body was horribly twisted, a clear sign of a fall from a significant height. I looked up. The mall was 6 stories high. Based on the body's distance from the railing, I made a preliminary guess. The fall was from the top floor. "Hayes," a high-pitched, almost childlike voice cut through my thoughts. Chloe Davis, in full uniform, was walking toward me. "I thought you were on your day off. What are you doing here?" Chloe adjusted her police cap, her bright, intelligent eyes blinking at me. "Just in the neighborhood. Heard the call and came to check it out. It's all yours. I'm heading out. See you tomorrow." "You got it. I'll take it from here. Drive safe, boss." Chloe waved enthusiastically. I rolled my eyes at her and walked out of the mall. She'd been assigned as my subordinate when I transferred. She was young, but she had the passion of a seasoned detective. Just as I exited, I noticed a middle-aged man on the edge of the crowd, placing a bouquet of carnations at the base of a wall. He stood there for a moment, then quietly turned and walked away. The tourist's words echoed in my head. "They say tons of people have died in that plaza. Damn it, I forgot my iced tea." I hurried back to the shop. The owner had already bagged it for me. "Hey," I said, "you ever hear any stories about the Cypress Grove Galleria?" A notification sound pinged from a tablet on the counter. "You have a new DoorDash order. Please confirm." The owner tore off a receipt and opened a drink cooler. "Anyone who grew up here knows about it. People die in that place all the time. The Cypress Grove. Sounds like a cemetery if you ask me. Bad name. I took a long drink of the sweet tea. Do you know of any other deaths there recently? He glanced at me, then turned his back to wipe down a counter. You could try the tailor shop down at the end of the block. Old man's been there for decades. He'd probably know more. He pointed in the opposite direction of the Galleria. All right, thanks. 3. The street wasn't long, only a few hundred yards. A 2-minute walk brought me to the tailor shop. Thorne's Bespoke Tailoring. The shop looked like it had been there forever. It was small, maybe a couple hundred square feet, but impeccably arranged. In a small display window to the left was a stunning black silk gown embroidered with gold thread. There was no price tag. The right window held a vintage, wide-lapelled men's suit. Its pristine condition showed it had been cared for meticulously. Standing outside, I couldn't help but picture Chloe in that gown. She'd look incredible in that. An old man with white hair and thick reading glasses emerged from the shop. He slid his glasses down his nose and peered at me. Need something altered? His voice was deep and resonant, a surprising contrast to his frail appearance. Oh, hello. I was wondering if you could tell me anything about the Cypress Grove Galleria. Heard anything unusual happening there over the years? My eyes landed on a pack of unopened cigarettes on his work table. There was no lighter or ashtray next to it. The owner hesitated for a moment before stepping back inside. People die at the Galleria all the time. After a while, the rumors started, ghosts, demons, you name it. I followed him in. The shop was spotless. Bolts of fabric were neatly stacked on shelves, and the air was filled with their clean, earthy scent. There were no chairs for customers, only the folding stool the owner sat on and a large cutting table. A heavy curtain cordoned off the back of the shop, which I figured was where he lived. A lot of old places in the quarter were built that way. Shop in the front, home in the back. It saved on rent while you ran your business. So, any deaths in the last few years? I asked, standing by the table and looking around. Not for a few years, no. Back in the mid-2010s, there were several. But if you really want to know, you should check the news archives or ask the local precinct. Seeing that I wasn't a paying customer, the old man lost interest and sat down on his stool, fiddling with an ancient-looking radio. Thanks. As I left, I glanced back at the exquisite black gown, marveling at the tailor's craftsmanship. For back in my apartment, I had just stepped out of the shower when my phone rang. It was my old partner. Ethan, I've got something new on Claire's case. I'm telling you this off the record, so keep it quiet. And don't do anything stupid. Yeah, I know the drill. Just tell me. As much as I hated his nagging, I was deeply grateful he was still looking into Claire's death for me. We found out Claire went to New Orleans twice before she died. Both trips were in the same month. That's right, where you are now. The first trip has a corporate travel record. It was for a business trip. The second one was just 2 days before the crash. No travel record for that one. Looks like it was personal. Why would she come back to New Orleans a second time? Who was she meeting? And was it connected to her death? Thanks, man. Let me know if anything else comes up. I appreciate it. My mind raced with questions. After hanging up, I scrolled through Claire's old Facebook profile. For the first trip to New Orleans, she'd posted a picture of a plane ticket. That was the day everything started to change. She became obsessed with her phone, constantly on WhatsApp until the early hours of the morning. For the second trip, there was nothing. No post, and she never mentioned it to me. But I remembered something from that time. She came home at 7 in the morning one day, claiming she'd been working all night on a deadline. A button was missing from her blouse, and her knee was scraped. I asked her what happened. She just smiled, said she'd taken a little fall, and went straight to the bedroom. After that, she was always hesitant on the phone, like she wanted to tell me something, but couldn't. I was swamped with a major case at the time, pulling all-nighters for days. The next call I got about her was the one telling me she was dead. 5 the next morning, I got to the precinct early. A paper bag was sitting on my desk. Inside were fresh beignets, my favorite. For you, old man. A little something from your humble servant, Chloe said, placing a cup of coffee next to the bag and grinning at me. I tapped the brim of her cap a couple of times. All right, what's with the buttering up? What do you want? She slapped my hand away and straightened her hat, pouting. Can't I just do something nice? You're so cynical. Anyway, the chief wants you to take the lead on yesterday's case. And you have to take me with you. That's all? Fine. Let's go as soon as I finish this. Hand me the file. I ate while I read. Through the glass partition in my office, I saw Chloe behind me, a proud little smile on her face, her eyes curving into crescent moons. The victim's name was Leo Vance, 41, owner of an elevator maintenance company. Security footage confirmed it was a suicide, and the point of entry matched my guess from yesterday. One thing stood out. He was in the middle of a lawsuit that hadn't been settled. An employee had been injured during a repair job, and they were fighting over the compensation amount. After breakfast, we changed into plain clothes. I drove as we headed back to the Cypress Grove Galleria. With the recent death, the mall was practically empty. We visited a few shops, but no one had any useful information. We decided to grab lunch and then head to Leo Vance's company that afternoon. The diner was packed with the lunch crowd. We found a small booth in a corner. "Hey, the gumbo here is amazing. You have to try it," Chloe said, pulling her hair back with a rubber band. A thin sheen of sweat already coated her neck. Before I could answer, she shot up and headed for the restroom. "Order for me. I'll be right back." About 10 minutes later, a loud argument from a nearby table drew everyone's attention. "I needed that money. You have a problem with that? If I don't pay them back, I'm a dead man." A man's voice boomed, heedless of the other patrons. "All you do is take. We can barely afford groceries. Maybe you'd be better off dead." "Good riddance," a woman shrieked back, slamming her hand on the table, her face flushed with rage. "You heartless bitch." He was about to hit her. I shot out of my seat and grabbed his raised left arm. "Police!" "Calm down. Don't get physical." The man froze at the word police, then wrenched his arm away and stormed out of the diner. He walked with a pronounced limp. His right leg looked like it had been badly injured. "Are you all right, ma'am?" I asked the woman who remained. "You can press charges if you need to." No, I'm fine. Thank you," she stammered, then quickly followed him out. "What was that all about?" Chloe asked, returning from the restroom and seeing me standing away from our table. "Nothing. Let's eat." During the meal, the fighting couple made me think of my wife, Claire. She worked in marketing for a food company, just a regular office job. We'd met on a blind date. After we got married, we almost never fought. She was good-natured and easygoing. Whenever we disagreed, she always deferred to me. I wondered now if that was the problem. Maybe she'd been bottling up her frustrations for years, until she just didn't want to talk to me at all anymore. Leo Vance's company had ground to a halt after his suicide, weighed down by the lawsuit. Only 2 employees remained in the office. "Hi, with the NOPD. We need to ask you a few questions about Leo Vance," Chloe said, showing them her badge. "Anything you can tell us about him, any clues and details about that lawsuit would be helpful," I added. "Detectives, we have no idea why he'd suddenly kill himself. Maybe the pressure just got to be too much," a small, thin man said. "He was a hard worker, always the first one in and the last one out. Business was decent, too. But then, about a year ago, we took on an elevator repair project. I think it was April of 2024. He pulled a file from a drawer containing the details of the project. I glanced at the location listed on the documents. The Cypress Grove Galleria again. The man continued, "We hired a temp for that job. A guy named Dylan Sharp, I think. He had an accident on the job, fell, and busted his leg. He demanded a huge payout, and when the boss refused, he sued us. After that, business started drying up. Maybe the boss just couldn't take it anymore. I don't know. Anything else to add?" Chloe asked, recording the conversation and taking notes. The other employee, a much larger man, spoke up. "I remember the boss took a vacation once. Said he was going on a trip. He never took time off, so it was weird. When he came back, he was just out of it. A few times, I'd be talking right to him, and he wouldn't even hear me. Do you know where he went? Or for how long?" "About a week, I think. We don't know where he went. But it wasn't long after he got back that we got that Galleria contract, and then the accident happened." After a bit more small talk, Chloe and I left and drove to Leo Vance's home. 7 Leo Vance had lived a comfortable life. He had a son and a daughter. Chloe took the lead in interviewing his wife while I looked around the house. Mrs. Vance explained that they hadn't originally done business in New Orleans. Someone had suggested her husband could find good opportunities here. He came down to test the waters, and a few successful projects earned him his first real money. So, the whole family moved to New Orleans and put down roots. "We heard your husband took a week-long vacation. Do you know where you went? And when was this?" Chloe asked, her eyes fixed on Mrs. Vance. Mrs. Vance looked exhausted. She thought for a moment before answering. "He went by himself. I don't know where. You know how it is with business. He was always traveling. I didn't think much of it, didn't ask. I think it was around March of 2024. Why? Did you find something? No, just trying to get a full picture. My attention was drawn to an old photograph on the living room wall. It was a picture of a rustic sign for a village, with the words Jade Creek carved into the wood. The photo had a faded, aged look. What's this? I asked. Oh, that's where my husband grew up. He never went back after he left. He said he hung it up for old time's sake. What did he leave? Jade Creek. Around 11 or 12 years old, I think. I don't remember exactly. He only mentioned it once. He said after the village land was bought out, his family moved to the city. By the time we finished the interview, it was already getting dark. We drove back to the precinct. Hayes, my seatbelt is stuck, Chloe said, struggling with the latch. I had to lean over to help her. I tried to avoid touching her, angling my body around hers, but I could still feel the warmth of her breath. Click. I glanced in the rearview mirror. The tips of Chloe's ears were bright red. She quickly pushed the door open and practically sprinted toward the building. It was an odd coincidence. On my first date with Claire, her seatbelt had gotten stuck too. The scene felt almost identical. I let out a bitter laugh. I shouldn't be comparing Chloe to my wife. Ate back at my desk. I remembered what the old tailor had said. I asked Chloe to pull all the case files related to the Cypress Grove Galleria. The look on her face was priceless. Her mouth fell open as if she'd seen a ghost. 20 minutes later, my expression mirrored hers. Chloe wheeled a cart up to my desk, so overloaded that several files slid off and hit the floor. 6 entire boxes of files. Is this all of it? I asked tentatively. There are probably another 5 or 6 boxes in storage. Well, guess we're pulling an all-nighter. She clenched her fists. You bet. We can't overlook a single clue. Her infectious energy gave me a second wind. I brewed a strong pot of coffee, preparing for a long night. The earliest case was from 2014, a woman who had accidentally fallen to her death. After that, the Galleria became a magnet for false alarms, but there were plenty of real accidents and suicides mixed in. I did a quick tally. It was no wonder the public was spooked. In just 10 years, including the most recent case, there had been 14 incidents, resulting in 10 deaths and 4 injuries. As I buried myself in the paperwork, a delicious aroma wafted through the office. Hayes, I ordered us some late-night pizza. Let's eat while we work, Chloe said, placing a box on my desk. She then took my thermos to refill it. Thanks. You're a lifesaver. Your dad must be proud of you. She froze for a second, a pained look crossing her face. My dad's gone. I felt like an idiot for bringing it up. I'm sorry. It's okay. Let's just get back to work. Watching her walk away, for some reason, I thought of Claire again. If I had just paid more attention back then, would she still be at home waiting for me? I pushed the thought away and dove back into the files. We created a list of all the victims. At first, none of them seemed connected, but then a detail in 2 of the cases caught my eye. December 25th, 2014. Victoria Bell, 27, owner of a jewelry shop in the Galleria. Died at 10 p.m. Christmas Day. Cause of death, accidental fall. January 2nd, 2016. Kevin Pope, 30, security guard at the Galleria. Died at 2:00 a.m. Cause of death, electrocution. Kevin Pope was hired after Victoria Bell's death. The 2 seemed unrelated, but they both came from the same small town, Jade Creek. Leo Vance, the latest victim, was also from Jade Creek. All 3 were around the same age. That couldn't be a coincidence. The cases were old, so finding people to talk to would be difficult. I had Chloe copy down what little contact information we could find. We needed to focus on the current case, which meant talking to the man suing Leo Vance, Dylan Sharp. I had had too much coffee and needed the restroom. I glanced at the clock. It was 4 a.m. Chloe was slumped over her desk, fast asleep. I took my jacket off and draped it over her shoulders. Seeing a little drool on her desk, I smiled. You did good, kid. I finished organizing the files and closed the last binder. Sunlight was already streaming through the office windows. I yawned, stretched, and cracked my back. Thanks. I turned my head. Chloe was standing there, holding my jacket out with both hands, her head bowed, avoiding my eyes. I smiled. No problem. Go home and get some rest. I'll go see Dylan Sharp this morning. Oh, okay. Be careful, Hayes. Call me if anything happens. With that, she scurried off. I had Dylan Sharp come down to the precinct. It was a strange coincidence. He was the husband from the argument at the diner. I went through the standard questions about Leo Vance. His story mostly matched what Vance's employees and wife had told me. On the day Leo Vance died, Dylan Sharp had an alibi. He was at home. He was a temp worker, and after their falling out, they hadn't been in contact. How did you end up getting that temp job with Leo Vance's company? And what happened with your leg? Dylan pointed to his right leg. Saw a job posting. Went in for interview. Vance saw I was a big guy, strong, so he hired me to help out on that project. Turns out the equipment was faulty. The elevator car dropped from the 5th floor. I was lucky to survive, but this leg is useless now. And after that, I told him he owed me $3 million. He refused, so I said, see you in court. He can run, but he can't hide. Even if he's dead, his estate still has to pay up. Dylan spoke with a cold indifference, as if Leo Vance's death meant nothing to him. But he had a point. Since they were already in a legal battle, he had no reason to harass Vance. Doing so would only hurt his own case. I asked a few more questions, but didn't uncover any new leads. If there's nothing else, just sign here and you can go. Thanks for your cooperation, I said, handing him the statement. He took the pen with his left hand, scribbled his signature, and tossed the pen down, leaving as if he couldn't get out of there fast enough. Just then, my phone rang. It was my old partner. What's up? Ethan, another piece on your wife's case. At the time, she was representing her company in a business deal with the Phoenix Corporation. The deal fell through. Phoenix is a huge conglomerate in New Orleans. The CEO is a guy named Julian Croft. I hear Phoenix is gearing up for a major new project. Might be worth looking into. I hung up the phone. Chloe was already back at her desk. Why didn't you rest a little longer? Have you eaten? I walked over to her desk and handed her a granola bar. Not yet. Thanks, Hayes. Chloe put the bar on her desk and pulled a notebook out of her bag. By the way, I tried to contact Kevin Pope's parents, but their number is disconnected. But I did get in touch with Victoria Bell's husband. Good work. Let's go see him this afternoon. I've already interviewed Dylan Sharp. Here's the transcript. You can file it. You got it. You're so efficient, Hayes. My admiration for you is like a river flowing endlessly. You must be tired. I rolled my eyes and went back to my desk. I opened my computer and started researching Julian Croft. I had never heard anything about Claire's company having dealings with the Phoenix Corporation. Could her second trip to New Orleans have been for work, too? Was she here to see Julian Croft? That afternoon, we met Victoria Bell's husband, Arthur, at a coffee shop. He was also in the jewelry business, but based out of state. The moment he sat down, I recognized him. I decided to be direct. The day of the suicide at the Cypress Grove Galleria. Were you there? The man was taken aback, but quickly lowered his gaze. Yes, detective. I was there to pay my respects to my wife. Every year, on her birthday and the anniversary of her death, I buy a bouquet of her favorite carnations and leave them there. You two must have been very close. Can you tell us what you know about your wife's death? Arthur took a sip of his coffee, stirring it slowly with a spoon as he spoke. We weren't close. My wife was having an affair. 12 his words hung in the air. Would you mind telling us about it? I asked gently. A friend of ours suggested we move to New Orleans for business. She was thrilled to come to the big city and fell in love with the place. She wanted to run a business, so I helped her lease a shop in the Cypress Grove Galleria and let her manage it. I still had my business back home, so I was constantly traveling back and forth. We saw each other less and less. Eventually, she stopped coming home, and I stopped visiting. Then one day, I looked at her phone. Her text messages were filled with flirtatious conversations. I cut in. Do you know who the other person was? Arthur shook his head and sighed. No. The police told me she was on the phone and walked over to the railing. Apparently, someone had removed a maintenance sign, and she fell. I've always suspected the person on the phone with her was that man, but back then, you could buy burner phones anywhere. They couldn't trace the number. I glanced at Chloe. She nodded, confirming his story was accurate. Arthur's situation felt uncomfortably similar to my own. Work had created a chasm between me and Claire, too. Feeling a sense of empathy, I found myself talking with him longer than I had intended. During our conversation, Chloe's phone kept buzzing. She started fidgeting. If it's urgent, you can go, I told her. I can handle things here. She pressed her hands together in a gesture of apology. Hayes, I'm so sorry. It's my mom, an emergency. You're the best. I'll head out now. After Chloe left, I continued the interview. Arthur said that after his wife's death, he became disheartened, closed the shop, and moved back home. As for Jade Creek, he said he had never heard his wife mention it. Leaving the coffee shop, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. Was it possible someone had intentionally removed that maintenance sign? But what would be the motive? And how could they have known Victoria Bell would walk to that exact spot? I remembered from the files that the Galleria had poor surveillance coverage back in 2014. There were numerous blind spots, and Victoria had fallen in one of them. But the coroner's report was clear. Her fall was not caused by external force. It was ruled an accident. Still, hearing Arthur talk about his wife's affair felt like a needle in my heart. As much as I hated to admit it, I suspected Claire had done the same thing. When someone you thought you knew better than anyone suddenly becomes a stranger, all sorts of dark thoughts creep in. I remembered the defeated look on Arthur's face as he left. If only I'd been open with her and talked things through, maybe. I was walking back to my car when I noticed a sedan that had been parked outside the coffee shop was now following me. 13, I turned my head, and the sedan immediately stopped. When I started to walk toward it, the car sped off. I memorized the license plate and sent it to a colleague to run. Who the hell was that? Am I really onto something big with these cases? Lost in thought, I found myself back in front of the tailor shop. This time, I decided to show my badge and ask the owner a few more questions. The shop owner's name was Silas Thorne, 63. He looked much older than he had a few days ago, almost as if he'd aged into his 80s. Mr. Thorne, have you ever heard of a place called Jade Creek? Silas shook his head. Cough, cough. Never heard of it. What about Victoria Bell and Kevin Pope? One was a jewelry shop owner at the Galleria, the other a security guard. Do you know them? He shook his head again. Seeing I wasn't getting anywhere, I made some small talk. At one point, he pushed aside the curtain to get something from the back. I noticed two black and white photos hanging on the wall. One of a woman in her 40s and one of a young boy. Your family, sir? Wife passed 20 years ago. Cough. My boy drowned in a pond when he was 8. Gone. Silas's face showed no trace of sadness, as if the memories had been locked away for a long time. A wave of sympathy for the lonely old man washed over me. Sir, I said impulsively, I'd like to have a suit made. He glanced at me and pulled out a measuring tape. All right, come over here. As he took my measurements, a profound sadness settled over me. I saw my own future in Silas Thorne. When I was in my 60s, would I still miss her? 2 days later, Chloe managed to track down one of Kevin Pope's old colleagues from the Galleria security team. Detective, my name's Hank Riley. Just call me Hank. Thanks for coming in, Hank. Tell us what you remember about Kevin Pope's time at the Galleria and the circumstances of his accident. Oh, Kevin. The captain hired him. I heard he dropped out of school early, couldn't hold down a job, so he ended up in security. The night it happened, it was his shift, and that was that. Did he have any problems? Debt enemies? And how did you guys schedule shifts? Did that electrical panel malfunction often? Hank thought for a moment. The captain handled the schedule. Debt or enemies? I wouldn't know. But that panel, it tripped all the time at night. We always had to go manually reset it. It only tripped at night, not during the day. And if it was faulty, why didn't they get it fixed? Hank gave me a knowing look. Management was cheap back then. No way they'd spend money on repairs. But what you said is interesting. We never thought about it. It just always happened in the middle of the night. We'd flip it back on and forget about it. Guess we got used to it. What about Victoria Bell? Do you remember her? Chloe asked, pouring him a glass of water. I had just started then. I remember it was Christmas Day. Most of the shops closed early. I don't know why she was still there so late. It looked like she was waiting for someone. After she died, the mall paid out a lot of money, and the whole thing was wrapped up quietly. Back in the car, I felt a growing unease. Victoria Bell was waiting for someone? The power only went out at night? The whole thing was shrouded in mystery. That familiar, high-pitched voice broke my concentration. Hayes, are you free tonight? What's up? Chloe patted her chest, as if psyching herself up. I'd like to invite you over for dinner. I'll cook. Well, seeing the hopeful look in her eyes, I couldn't bring myself to say no. All right, thanks. Oh, don't mention it. I'll put the address in your GPS. She let out a small sigh of relief. Then a wide grin spread across her face as she typed the address into her phone. Chloe was busy in the kitchen while I looked around her apartment. Realizing my detective habits were kicking in, I forced myself to sit back down on the couch. Her place was simple and tidy, almost minimalist. On the TV stand was a photo of her with her parents. It was clear they were a happy family. The aroma wafting from the kitchen brought back a flood of memories. Since Claire's death, I hadn't had a proper home-cooked meal. Dinner's ready. For a split second, Chloe's silhouette merged with Claire's in my mind. I was definitely attracted to her, but I couldn't tell if it was because I was lonely and using her as a substitute, or if I genuinely liked her. Chloe bustled back and forth, placing dishes on a coffee table. I helped by getting the plates and silverware. She didn't have a dining table, so we sat side by side on the couch to eat. The first bite was so good, I couldn't stop. I just kept eating, shoveling food into my mouth. Slow down. You don't have to be so dramatic. It's like you haven't eaten in years. It's so good, I couldn't help it. Cough, cough. I had been eating too fast while trying to talk and ended up choking. Chloe rubbed my back. Here, have some soup. If you like it, you can come over more often. I'm usually alone anyway. One more person just means one more set of dishes. Okay, that would be great. Thank you. The words came out before I could stop them. But she didn't seem to mind. It's no trouble. I'm happy to have you. I never see it as a bother. I had just swallowed a spoonful of soup, and her words nearly made me spit out. Chloe took the soup bowl from my hands and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I know you're still thinking about your wife. I don't mind. We're both adults. I think you understand. She looked down at the floor, her expression not shy or anxious, but calm. Incredibly calm. Give me some time, I said. I'll give you an answer. I didn't know what else to say. If I was going to start a new relationship, I really did need some time. Okay, I'll wait. Now eat, before the food gets cold. Seeing her smile again, I felt a weight lift from my chest. But a news report on the TV quickly caught my attention. The Phoenix Corporation has announced its acquisition of the historic Jade Creek property, with plans to develop it into a new tourist resort. Claire Hayes, Julian Croft of Phoenix Corp., Jade Creek, Leo Vance, Victoria Bell, Kevin Pope. It was like all the scattered pieces were finally being connected by a single thread. Was there a massive conspiracy hidden behind all of this? Later, back in my empty apartment, I sat in the silent living room, my racing heart from dinner finally slowing down. Faced with her sudden confession, I looked up at the ceiling and asked, would you be okay with me starting a new relationship? 3 days later, after getting approval from my captain, I drove out to Jade Creek alone. Chloe stayed in New Orleans to continue following up on the Leo Vance case. Jade Creek wasn't too far from the city, about a 4-hour drive. When I arrived, the old wooden sign from Leo Vance's photograph was half dismantled. Banners protesting the acquisition were strung up everywhere. The nearby houses and fences were dilapidated. It was clear this part of the village was abandoned. I drove further in, and after about 10 minutes, I started seeing scattered houses and a few people. Following a local's directions, I found the home of the village elder, a man named Elias Hemlock. He was in his 80s and had apparently lived in Jade Creek his entire life. Sir, hello. I'm a police officer from New Orleans, I said, showing him my badge. His hearing wasn't great, so I raised my voice. The old man's trembling hand took the badge, glanced at it, and handed it back. What do you want? He asked in a thick, rural accent. I was hoping to see if the village has a registry, a list of former residents. Elias, though old, was sharp. He slowly went inside his house and returned about 5 minutes later with a dusty, cloth-bound book. This is it. Thank you. I took the book, dusted it off, and sat down on the porch steps to look through it. According to Elias, the registry was created about 30 years ago. At that time, a land buyout prompted many families to take the money and leave. The entries were simple, handwritten notes. The ink was faded, but thankfully, the pages weren't water damaged. It listed only names and move-out dates, no contact information. But even with such limited information, I found something that stunned me. The book contained not only the names of Victoria Bell, Kevin Pope, and Leo Vance, but also Dylan Sharp and the CEO of Phoenix Corporation, Julian Croft. Dylan Sharp was from the same village as Leo Vance. He had definitely hidden that from me, but the surprises weren't over. A few pages later, I found a name that made my blood run cold. Claire Hayes. My wife's family was from Jade Creek. All the seemingly random pieces of information were connecting. Sir, do you know about the acquisition of Jade Creek? I asked. Elias Lee a cigarette. The brand looked familiar. That's business for the young folks. I'm too old for that. Don't get involved. Seeing he didn't want to talk, I thanked him and left. On the drive back, I called my father-in-law to ask about Jade Creek. He said they left when Claire was only a year old and didn't know much about what happened after. As for Victoria Bell and the others, he said it was too long ago to remember. Before hanging up, he added, Ethan, you should come visit us sometime. Claire is gone, but you're still young. Don't worry about us. We're very open-minded. Don't keep yourself trapped in the past. I will, Dad. Thanks. I'll come see you in a few days. After the call, I felt a mix of emotions. Claire's parents had always been good to me, treating me like their own son. Even with her gone, I would continue to look after them for her. Besides, since Claire was connected to Julian Croft, and they were from the same village, I had to go back and see if I could find any clues. I got home around midnight. I sent a text to Chloe with the new information, figuring she could look into it in the morning. To my surprise, she was still awake. Chloe told me that the department had officially closed the Leo Vance case, ruling it a suicide. Any further investigation would have to be pursued from a different angle. After a few more texts, she said she was tired. Her good night message had a heart emoji at the end. Lying in bed, I scrolled through her Instagram. It was mostly selfies and pictures of food. The girl really loved to eat. But then I saw a series of 5 posts from a trip back to her hometown. The photos were all landscapes, no people. The dates of the posts lined up perfectly with the week Leo Vance had disappeared. 18 the next morning, I woke up to a message from my old partner. He had an update on the Cypress Grove Galleria. Years ago, someone had co-invested in the building with the Phoenix Corporation, but they had used a shell company, so their identity was hidden. A strange thought occurred to me. Cypress Grove, Jade Creek. C. Was that also a coincidence? The priority now was to find Dylan Sharp. He had lied about being from the same village as Leo Vance. I had just finished getting ready when Chloe called, her voice frantic. Dylan Sharp committed suicide. You need to get over here. I'm sending you the address. What? He killed himself? The timing was too perfect. I had just visited Jade Creek, and now he was dead. I smelled the setup. The scene was a cheap rental apartment. The area was already cordoned off. I ducked under the tape and went inside. The doors and windows were locked from the inside, but the front door wasn't deadbolt. There are traces of charcoal burning on the floor. Sleeping pills and a suicide note are on the nightstand. The note is typed. I faced the bed. The note and pills were on the left nightstand. The bed was neatly made, and there were no signs of a struggle. The note said he had lost a lot of money gambling and was deep in debt to loan sharks, so he saw no other way out. It all seemed plausible, but something felt off. This isn't right. What is it? Chloe asked, leaning in. As I recall, Dylan Sharp was left-handed. He signed his statement with his left hand. We can confirm this with his wife. If he was a lefty, he would have placed the note and pills on that side of the bed, not on his right. Chloe's eyes widened in understanding. I'll check the security cameras in the area, see if anyone suspicious came by. That afternoon, my colleague called. He had run the license plate I sent him. It was registered to the Phoenix Corporation. Just as I hung up, Chloe walked over with a file. The apartment is in a blind spot. The nearby cameras are mostly broken. Nothing suspicious was recorded. But we got a tip. Dylan Sharp had been in contact with Julian Croft before he died. My brow furrowed. The CEO of Phoenix Corp? Yes. It looked like Julian Croft was definitely involved. Was he afraid of what we might find? Bring him in for questioning tomorrow. 19 in the interrogation room. Julian Croft kept glancing at his watch. Detectives, if we could speed this up, I have a very busy schedule. Mr. Croft, do you know the deceased, Dylan Sharp? Have you had any contact with him recently? What? He's dead? I had no idea. We were from the same village. He was having some financial trouble a while back, so he reached out to me. For old time's sake, I gave him some money. We haven't spoken since. Croft loosened his tie, his tone slightly agitated. We had checked Dylan's phone and confirmed he had contacted Croft. I pressed on. Where were you last night? Do you have an alibi? I was at home all night. My family can verify that. Do you know Kevin Pope, Victoria Bell, and Leo Vance? He didn't answer right away, thinking for a long moment before speaking. Now that you mention it, yes. We were from the same village as kids. We all went our separate ways and lost touch. What about Claire Hayes? Do you know her? I asked, watching his expression carefully. Claire Hayes. Oh yes, same village. I ran into her during a business meeting. I believe her company was trying to partner with Phoenix, so they sent her. The terms didn't work out, though. Croft picked up his water glass and drained it in one gulp. His answers were smooth, consistent with our preliminary investigation. But I kept pushing. Can you tell us about the acquisition of Jade Creek? There are people there protesting it. He looked up at me. Is that relevant to this case? Hard to say. We can't disclose too much at this time. Sensing his defensiveness, I decided to bluff to see how he would react. He suddenly burst out laughing, his eyes full of contempt. Detectives, I can't get into the business details, you understand. But I can tell you this. Those idiots don't even know they've been sold out. The contract was signed by that old man, Elias Hemlock. Don't let his shabby house fool you. He's filthy rich. Before I could respond, he continued, It's getting late, and I have a flight to catch. If there's nothing else, I'll be going. Croft wasn't a suspect, just a person of interest. I couldn't legally hold him. So I asked my last question. The Cypress Grove Galleria was a Phoenix investment, but we heard the main owner was someone else. Can you tell us who? Croft stood up and tapped the table. Didn't I just tell you? How else do you think I got that old man to sell me Jade Creek? He rubbed his hands together. It's all about leverage. That's business. 20. The interrogation was surprisingly fruitful. The secret investor behind the Galleria was the Jade Creek village elder, Elias Hemlock. And it was Hemlock who sold Jade Creek to Julian Croft. They were clearly in bed together. As for the four deceased, Croft had solid alibis for the times of their deaths. But when I mentioned my wife, his reaction was different. There was definitely a secret he was hiding. But his expression wasn't that of a man having an affair. It was more like panic and hatred. I didn't ask about the car that had followed me. It was pointless. He would have 1,000 excuses. As I left the interrogation room, I tried calling Elias Hemlock. A middle-aged man answered. I am sorry, detective. My father. He passed away this morning. Passed away. I just saw him 2 days ago. What happened? The doctor said it was a sudden heart attack. I'm very sorry, detective, but I'm a little busy right now. The line went dead. It felt like my only lead had vanished. Hemlock's death was too sudden. Could it have been foul play? But a doctor had made the call, so it was likely legitimate. I asked the local sheriff's department near Jade Creek to verify. A deputy confirmed that Elias Hemlock had indeed died of a heart attack, with no signs of foul play. As I was leaving the precinct for the day, Leo Vance's wife called. She said she'd found something written on the back of the Jade Creek photograph. I had her add me on WhatsApp and sent a picture. A few minutes later, the image came through. Scrawled on the back were the words, "The ghosts want revenge," and below it, a date. 3/15/2024. The ghosts want revenge. His wife had no idea what it meant, but Leo Vance must have left the message for a reason. That date. Suddenly, several pieces of information clicked into place. Leo Vance took a week-long trip in March, came back and wrote this message, and in April, he took the Galleria job and hired Dylan Sharp. Dylan Sharp had borrowed money from Julian Croft, and the Galleria was a Phoenix investment. Now, both Leo and Dylan were dead. It had to be connected to Croft. It was even possible that Dylan Sharp's accident was intentional. He was just lucky enough to survive. With this thought, I immediately called a colleague and asked him to check for any travel records for Leo Vance in 2024, bus, train, or plane tickets. As I headed downstairs, I ran into Chloe. She jogged over to me. Here's the file on Dylan Sharp. I spoke with his wife and scheduled a meeting at her place tomorrow morning. But I have tomorrow off, so you'll have to go. Oh, that's fine. I can handle it. Hey, Chloe seemed to sense what I was about to say and quickly cut me off. If you're free tomorrow night, can you come over for dinner? Yeah, okay. I'll be there. I'll try to wrap things up as quickly as I can. Watching her skip away, the tension in my shoulders eased a little. I couldn't keep putting this off. I had to face it, and I had to admit she had already found a place in my heart. 21 in my car, I reviewed Dylan Sharp's file. So he had gambling debts. No wonder he was trying to get money from his wife and Julian Croft. Did he have some kind of leverage, something that got him killed by Croft? My phone buzzed. It was a voice message from my colleague. Ethan, we checked. Leo Vance didn't buy any bus, train, or plane tickets in all of 2024. No record of him leaving the country, either. That meant his trip was a lie. So where did he go? And what did the ghost want revenge mean? On a hunch, I asked my colleague to pull all the security footage from the area around the Cypress Grove Galleria for March 2024. My gut told me Vance had been there. I went back up to the office. I brewed some coffee and glanced at Chloe's empty desk. My father-in-law's words came back to me. Don't keep yourself trapped in the past. I spent the entire night reviewing surveillance footage, and I found him. On March 8th, 2024, Leo Vance entered the Cypress Grove Galleria and then disappeared from view. Thanks to the blind spots, I couldn't see where he went. But he reappeared on camera on March 14th, a full week later. Was he kidnapped? But why would they let him go? He doesn't look like he escaped. Or did he get caught doing something he shouldn't have? I had no answers. I looked at the clock. It's after 5 a.m. Time to go home and get some rest. Before leaving, I watered the small plant on Chloe's desk, then turned off the lights and left. 22 the next morning, I met with Dylan Sharp's widow, the same woman from the diner. She didn't look as haggard as I expected. In fact, she seemed relieved. During our conversation, she told me about her husband's life. He wasn't always like this. He got in with the wrong crowd, started gambling. He lost more and more, and eventually, he got involved with loan sharks. I noticed bruises on her arm. She didn't try to hide them. Every day, he'd come home asking for money. If I said no, he'd hit me. So how'd he get the job with Leo Vance? One day, he came home and said an old friend had offered him a job. They even gave him a $5,000 advance and promised another $5,000 when he was done. He was so happy. But then the accident happened, and he never worked again. He just sued the company. I wondered if their friendship was really that strong. A $5,000 advance, and Dylan had hidden his connection to Leo. What happened after that? After that, he started getting into petty crime. I think the cops were onto him. He'd come home every day complaining about some damn female officer. A female officer? Do you know who she was? I asked. No, he never said, just that she was always on his case. After the interview, I got back in my car. I was about to text Chloe when I accidentally opened her Instagram feed. Wait a minute. I scrolled frantically. The dates of her trip back home perfectly matched the week Leo Vance was missing. A female officer. A chill ran down my spine. Could Chloe be involved in these cases? No way. I have to ask her about this tonight. 23 that afternoon, I got a call from Silas Thorne, the tailor. He said my suit was ready. I thought that was incredibly fast. After work, I hurried over to his shop. I noticed the pack of cigarettes on his desk was gone, replaced by several small pill bottles. Silas handed me a garment bag. I opened it. Sir, there's a gown in here too. Isn't this the one from the... Silas twisted the cap off a pill bottle, tossed a few into his mouth, and washed them down with water. It's a set. I never make just one piece. Always a pair, one for a man, one for a woman. He shook the pill bottle. Late-stage lung cancer. I won't have time to make another woman's piece. The suit you're holding is the last thing I'll ever make. The gown is for your loved one. Faced with this unexpected kindness, I couldn't refuse. The thought of this lonely old man, now facing a terminal illness, made my eyes sting. He seemed to read my mind and let out a hearty laugh. Ha ha, don't look so glum. I've lived long enough. More than enough. It'll be good to see them again. I didn't know how to comfort a dying man. Words felt hollow in the face of death. Cherish the one you have, young man. Silas waved his hand. Go on. Someone's waiting for you at home. I turned away so he wouldn't see the tears in my eyes. The thought of the one who was no longer at home for me made all the grief rush back. At that moment, a news report on his small TV caught my eye. It was Julian Croft at a press conference announcing the acquisition of Jade Creek. That man is such a phony, Silas muttered. Acts like a gentleman, but he even abuses women. His words cut through my sadness. I wiped my eyes. He abuses women? Yeah, I saw him one night, getting rough with a woman. Pushed her right to the ground. It was last year, I think. My mind immediately flashed to Claire. Could something have happened? Was her second trip to New Orleans to see Julian Croft? Was it how she got hurt? Where did this happen? He stepped outside and pointed southeast, in front of the wine bar down the street. I left the tailor shop and asked a colleague to pull the security footage from the wine bar. Then, I drove to Chloe's apartment. 24 as soon as I walked in, I saw her bustling around, the sound of the kitchen vent humming. "Have a seat. Dinner will be ready in a minute." Seeing the table full of food warmed my heart. The questions I planned to ask her got stuck in my throat. I discreetly sent a text to a colleague, asking him to do a background check on Chloe and her family. "What are you just standing there for? Sit down." "Oh, right." During dinner, we talked about everyday things. The atmosphere was light and easy. I told her I was planning to take a few days off to visit my in-laws. She didn't seem to mind at all and encouraged me to spend time with my late wife's parents. After dinner, we sat on the couch, drinking tea. She suddenly asked, what was she like? I didn't answer, choosing to remain silent. Chloe didn't press the issue. In a relaxed tone, she said, "If you don't like me, you can just say so. I won't hold it against you, I promise." Deep down, I did like this girl, but my own unresolved grief held me back from fully committing. But then I thought of Silas Thorne's words, "Cherish the one you have." I thought of my father-in-law, and I thought of Chloe's bright, sincere smile. My mind was a mess. I put down my cup and turned to face her. "I do like you. I know my situation is complicated and chaotic, but I'm happy and I'm grateful that you like me. And I want you to know, this isn't because I'm lonely and using you as a substitute. I'm not saying this for any other reason than the truth." I knew Chloe was a direct person, so I decided to be completely honest with her. She listened, and then, like a child, she started laughing, her whole body shaking with joy on the couch. Then she took my hand. "Let's be together, Ethan. I like you, so you don't have to thank me." "Yeah," I said. "I like you too." That night, I stayed at her place. 25 the next morning, I put in for my leave and prepared to fly to my in-laws' home. Before I left, Chloe told me she had no regrets about her choice and that I shouldn't feel any pressure. She also said that, if it was okay, she'd like to visit my late wife's grave with me someday. I left her apartment and headed straight for the airport. In the terminal, I received a message from my colleague. "Ethan, I'm sending you the footage from the wine bar. Take a look." I opened the video. I saw Julian Croft and Claire walk into the bar together. About 10 minutes later, Dylan Sharp appeared on screen. Dylan Sharp? I kept watching. About an hour later, Claire came out of the bar. Her hair was disheveled. She was wearing the same outfit from the day she came home with a missing button. 20 minutes later, Dylan Sharp left the bar, and Julian Croft followed about 10 minutes after him. Croft and Claire didn't argue outside. Why did Silas Thorne lie? What was his motive? My mind was reeling as I boarded the plane. I arrived at my in-laws' house that afternoon. They had a few more gray hairs, but they were still in good spirits. After catching up, I went to Claire's old room to look through her things. While searching, I accidentally knocked over a jewelry box. Its contents scattered across the floor, breaking a pair of pearl earrings. As I quickly picked up the pieces, I found a small black object among them. A listening device? I rushed to my laptop, connected the device, and played the audio file. A conversation began, and I finally learned the truth about my wife's death. 26, Claire, we all came from the same damn village. Do you really have to push this far? Julian, let go of me. I am pushing. You people killed Leo Thorne, and you've been threatening me ever since. Who's the one pushing here? Ha ha ha, we were just kids. Who would have thought a bunch of kids could do that? But since you know, you and your cop husband have to die. Why are you wasting time talking to this bitch? Let's just kill her now. I recognized Dylan Sharp's voice. The three of them were in the same room. Go ahead, touch me, and see what happens. My colleague is right outside. I told her if I'm not out in 10 minutes, she should call the police. There was a moment of silence, then the sound of glass shattering. The recording ended. I clenched my jaw in fury. Those sons of bitches. But I knew anger wouldn't help. I had to stay calm. Leo Thorne. I ran out to the living room and asked my father-in-law who Leo Thorne was. He closed his eyes, thinking for a moment, then they shot open. I remember now. Years ago, a boy drowned. I think his name was Leo Thorne. But I looked at the village registry. There was no one named Leo Thorne. I thought back to the book. There were many names, but the village only had about 5 or 6 common surnames, and Thorne wasn't one of them. I remember his father's name, though. Hold on. Oh, right. The boy's father was Silas Thorne. He lived at the edge of the village. Hearing that name, a chill went up my spine. I had never imagined the tailor was connected to all of this, and that he had hidden it so well. I sat down, my mind racing. No Thorne family in the registry, a boy who drowned, Leo Thorne's murder, the Cypress Grove Galleria, Jade Creek, the Phoenix Corporation. All the pieces were connecting like a spider's web. Cypress Grove. Revenge. I didn't have all the details yet, but the general outline of the plot was becoming clear. I immediately booked the next flight back to New Orleans. I sent the audio file to Chloe, telling her to find Silas Thorne immediately and to bring Julian Croft in for questioning again. 27 early the next morning, I was on a flight back to New Orleans. As soon as I landed, Chloe called. Ethan, I went to the tailor shop. It's closed, and I can't find Silas Thorne anywhere. As for Julian Croft, his secretary says he's out of town on business and can't be reached. Okay, Fine, we'll figure it out when I get back to the precinct. But for the rest of the day, we couldn't find either of them. It was as if they had vanished. That night, I was preparing to brief my captain when the news exploded, hitting the city like a bomb. A video was spreading like wildfire online. Phoenix Corp CEO commits murder. The department immediately mobilized to apprehend Julian Croft. With trembling hands, I clicked on the video. The camera was focused on an old man tied to a chair in what looked like a warehouse. A middle-aged man sat across from him. The middle-aged man was Julian Croft. The old man was Silas Thorne. You old bastard. You're already dying, and you still have to cause all this trouble. You kill my son. You. And Dylan Sharp. Leo Vance. Kevin Pope. Victoria Bell. I won't let any of you get away with it. When Victoria and Kevin died, I didn't think much of it. But that idiot Leo Vance was scared out of his mind. He came to me, babbling about ghosts wanting revenge. But I never would have guessed it was you. Croft stood up, walked over to Silas, and held a knife to his throat. Tell me, where's the recording? Hand it over. Silas suddenly started laughing, a wild, crazed sound. I knew it. That girl's death was your doing. I'm glad I took the gamble. Ha ha ha. Croft plunged a knife into Silas's thigh. Tell me, where is it? Leo, my boy, Daddy has avenged you. Ha ha ha. Julian Croft then stabbed Silas Thorne 6 more times. The video ended. My mind went blank. 28, that girl's death, and the recording. It had to be Chloe. I instantly realized that Chloe and Silas Thorne knew each other. She had been playing me the whole time. A wave of helplessness washed over me as I realized how thoroughly I had been used. Julian Croft was arrested shortly after. A distraught Chloe arrived at the scene late, her eyes red and swollen. I assumed she was grieving for Silas, so I didn't say anything. Ethan, give me some time. After this case is over, I'll come find you. Fine, he replied coldly. During the interrogation, Julian Croft confessed to everything. He admitted to his role in the murder of Leo Thorne. When he was 11, Kevin Pope had lured Leo to the pond, while Victoria Bell and Leo Vance acted as lookouts. He and Dylan Sharp had tricked Leo into thinking there were pearls at the bottom of the water. What started as a childhood prank ended in tragedy. Horrifyingly, after Leo Thorne drowned, they didn't get help. Under Julian Croft's orders, they threw rocks into the pond, and he threatened them to keep silent. At that time, the Jade Creek land buyout was already in motion. Within 2 years, everyone had left the village for the city. Years later, my wife, Claire, had accidentally overheard a conversation between Croft and Dylan Sharp. When Croft found out, he began threatening and intimidating her until her second trip to New Orleans, when he decided to have her killed. He then found a scapegoat, framing the crash as a drunk driving accident. But Croft never imagined that my wife had secretly recorded their conversation. As for Dylan Sharp, he had been extorting Croft. His final demand a staggering $100 million. So Croft had someone drug him and stage a suicide. They had used a dedicated burner phone to communicate, which is why we hadn't found anything on Dylan's regular phone. But how the video of Silas Thorne's murder was filmed and leaked was still under investigation. 29. Chloe wanted to meet at my apartment. I knew she had something to tell me, and I waited for her confession. The background check I had requested on Chloe arrived. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place. Ding dong. I opened the door, and Chloe immediately threw her arms around me, holding me tight. Don't say anything yet. Just give me that gown. I want to wear it. I gently pushed her away and looked in her eyes. They were pleading. I went to my room and got the gown. She went into the bathroom to change and came out a moment later. How do I look? Beautiful. That gown really suits you. I meant it. She looked stunning. A small smile played on Chloe's lips, as if my praise was all she wanted. Your father. I knew it was the wrong time to ask, but I couldn't help my curiosity. I am sorry, Ethan. I used you, but my feelings for you are real. This is a long story, and I hope you'll listen. She leaned in and kissed my cheek. Seeing the confusion in my eyes, she added, I'm going to turn myself in. Given the high-profile nature of the case, the verdict came quickly. Chloe Davis was convicted of kidnapping and intimidation and sentenced to prison. Her father, Thomas Davis, and Silas Thorne, being deceased, could not be charged. Julian Croft was found guilty of multiple counts of murder and sentenced to death. The Phoenix Corporation's acquisition of Jade Creek was terminated. The investigation uncovered years of corruption within the company, and the corporate giant quickly collapsed. Before she went to prison, I visited Chloe. There were some things I had to tell her in person. Thank you for coming to see me. She seemed nervous, constantly wringing her hands. Honestly, at first, I was furious. But, in the end, you helped me find the truth about my wife's death. You let me know she never betrayed me. For that, no matter what, I have to thank you. I stood up and bowed to her. And also, as a police officer, I will always condemn what you did. But as your boyfriend, I want to say this. When you get out, let's get married. Chloe's lips trembled, and large tears rolled down her cheeks. She was sobbing too hard to speak, but she nodded her head furiously. Epilogue. A 30-year revenge. Standing at my wife's grave, I told her about Chloe. I told her I was doing okay and not to worry. Then, I told her the story of a lonely old man and his long-awaited revenge. In 1995, when Leo Thorne was 8 years old, Leo Vance was the only one who felt guilty after his death. He told his father, who, in a panic, quickly moved his family out of Jade Creek. But the village elder, Elias Hemlock, noticed something was amiss. Under pressure, Leo Vance's father confessed what had happened. At the time, the land buyout was underway, so Hemlock chose to keep the secret. 2 years later, he finally told Silas Thorne the truth, but by then, the children involved had all moved away. Racked with guilt, Hemlock erased all traces of the Thorne family from the village records when he compiled the new registry in 1997. He then approached Julian Croft's father, and, together, they invested in the Cypress Grove Galleria, laying the groundwork for Silas's revenge. All profits from the Galleria were secretly funneled to Silas Thorne. After years of investigation and preparation, Silas began his plan. In 2014, his first target was Victoria Bell. He had learned that the wife of a man named Thomas Davis was gravely ill. Silas stepped in, paying for her treatment and saving her life. He also paid for their daughter, Chloe's, education. Indebted to him, Thomas Davis agreed to help Silas. First, Silas had a proxy lure Victoria Bell's husband, Arthur, to New Orleans for a business opportunity. He then had Thomas Davis, posing as a wealthy businessman, seduce Victoria. Victoria fell for it completely. Eager to stay in the city with her new lover, she volunteered to manage the jewelry shop. On Christmas Day, Thomas called her, telling her he had a special gift for her on the ground floor of the mall, which she could see from a specific spot on the upper level. That night, Silas removed the maintenance sign from a faulty railing. From a nearby building, Thomas used binoculars to guide Victoria step by step. As she leaned over the broken railing, it gave way, and she fell to her death. In 2016, Silas learned that Kevin Pope had dropped out of school and was drifting. He had Thomas, who had since become the security captain at the Galleria, hire Kevin. Silas then began tripping the main breaker every night, conditioning Kevin to go to the utility room to reset it as part of his routine. One night, on Silas's orders, Thomas scheduled Kevin for the night shift. Silas had already tampered with the electrical panel. When Kevin went to reset the breaker, he was electrocuted. In 2020, Silas had someone contact Leo Vance, offering him several easy, high-paying projects in New Orleans. Leo took the bait and relocated his business. By this time, Thomas Davis had passed away from an illness. His daughter, Chloe, took his place, vowing to help Silas finish his plan. At the end of 2023, Silas arranged for associates to lure Dylan Sharp into gambling. Once Dylan was in debt, They connected him with loan sharks. The goal was twofold. First, Dylan's desperate nature would lead him to Julian Croft for money, pulling Croft into the web. Second, it set the stage for the elevator accident. In 2024, Chloe took a leave of absence, claiming to visit her hometown. In reality, she kidnapped Leo Vance. Silas knew Leo had the weakest will of the group. For a week, Chloe tormented him with psychological tricks, making him believe he was being haunted. Leo broke and confessed everything about Leo Thorne's murder. With the confession recorded, Chloe blackmailed him into helping her deal with Dylan Sharp. Meanwhile, Silas traveled to Chloe's hometown and took landscape photos, which he sent to her to post on social media, creating her alibi. Dylan Sharp was lucky. He survived the fall with only a broken leg. But Leo Vance, crushed by the pressure of the lawsuit, his guilt over Leo Thorne's death, and the blackmail recording, ultimately took his own life. By 2025, Silas learned of his terminal cancer diagnosis and knew he had to accelerate his plan. Unable to get his settlement money, Dylan Sharp resorted to petty crime, in addition to extorting Julian Croft. Chloe, now a detective, relentlessly pursued him, sabotaging his criminal activities and pushing him to the brink. In their final confrontation, Chloe apprehended Dylan, took his phone, and sent a text to Julian Croft demanding $100 million. She then destroyed the phone, setting Dylan up to be murdered by Croft. But Silas knew he still didn't have enough leverage to take down Croft completely. At the tailor shop, he intentionally gave me false information to mislead my investigation. By a stroke of fate, my own investigation led me to the critical recording Claire had made. Once they had that recording, Silas made his final move. He bribed one of Croft's men and set up hidden cameras and microphones in a warehouse. Threatened by the new evidence, Julian Croft had his men kidnap Silas, just as planned. The resulting video, edited from Maximum Impact, was released by Chloe through an overseas server. Silas Thorne sacrificed himself, not only to get his final revenge on Julian Croft, but in concert with Elias Hemlock's long-laid plans to bring down the entire corporate empire Croft had built. And with that, a meticulously planned revenge, 30 years in the making, finally came to an end. This story is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to actual events or persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental.